Hey fourth grade, Miss Pickens is here and I'm ready to teach you guys a really fun lesson on writing. What you're gonna need today is pen or pencil. You're gonna need your notebook and tea or hot cocoa because I want to teach you guys how to write effectively for Wednesday's assignment. So if you haven't submitted yet, don't worry. Watch this first, get your ideas together, and then submit for your homework assignment on Wednesday. That way you show me what you know. Let's get started. Okay, so if you log into Clever and you access my teacher page, you will come across something that looks similar to this. Where it says Lessons and Resources, week of May 4th, right here, this is where you're gonna find Wednesday's writing assignment. In order to do Wednesday's writing assignment, you should have already completed Mondays and Tuesdays homework, and you should have already taken a look at lessons 2 and the main idea homework help. So if you haven't done those things, do all of those things first before you do Wednesday's homework. I promise you it will help make a world of difference when you do Wednesday's work. Let's say you did do all those 4 assignments. You're gonna go ahead and click on Wednesday's homework. This will pop up. In the top box, this is basically your criteria for success and my instructions, what I would like you to do. Make sure you type your name here. And then here is going to be, right here, that is your prompt question, that is your task. All right, so if you remember in the annotation video, a lot of times if you annotate, you have to annotate with a purpose or a task. This would be your task. And this is why I say it's important that you do your homework assignments first before Wednesday's assignment, because the prompt is asking you to look at the fastest woman in the world and Alice Coachman jumps for the sky. Once you've submitted your answer, let's just say I answered the question here. Then you're going to scroll down to the criteria for success. You are in charge of seeing if you got all of these correct. This is the criteria I'm looking for that I'm grading you on. So say for instance you did decide, okay, I attacked the prompt and I did it well, you're just going to check it off. Or if you say, yeah, I answered the question in the topic sentence, but I could have done it better, so I'm not going to check that off so that my teacher knows this is maybe something I struggle with, but I know I killed the transition words and I have 4 pieces of evidence, 2 from each text. Maybe I struggled with, saying how that piece of evidence supported my answer, so I'm not going to check that box, but I know I wrapped it all up in a nice sentence at the end. This is going to be your guide to figure out what you need to go back and change or what you would like me to take a look at when I look at your work. I'm going to go over today these 6 steps right up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this very quick tutorial. So we're going to review all of these things to get you ready for this writing task. Say you submitted this, right? And you were like, oh my gosh, I totally could have made that better, or I wanted to add something. You're going to go to the top, say submit another response. And then all I ask you to do is where it says, what is your name? You would write your name and then say revision. Or you write your name and then you're going to say part 2. Or you write your name and you're going to say 2, right? So that way I know like this is the one you want me to grade. Maybe I don't take a look at that first one, or I don't grade that first one as heavily. Again, you're going to write your answer, you're going to fill in your boxes, and then you're going to press submit. Check a prompt. The first thing you want to do is read through the prompt twice. I'm going to read it to you once, and then I want you to read it to yourselves at home the second time. Then we're going to see if we can figure out the format with type of response we're supposed to be writing. And then we're going to see if we can underline the objective, what it is we are supposed to be doing. I'm going to help you through the paraphrase portion, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So the prompt says, read The Fastest Woman in the World and Alice Coachman Jumps for the Sky. How do the women in these 2 texts make history in the Olympics? Based on both texts, what obstacles did these athletes encounter on their way to success? Right now, I would like you to spend a few seconds, read this prompt out loud to yourself. All right, if you read it out loud to yourself, you'll probably notice that the format is not obvious. It doesn't say write a poem, write a paragraph, write an essay, write a novel, write a book, right? It doesn't say any of that. So for this purpose, I'm going to tell you the format. I would like you in this instance to write at least one paragraph. And the reason why I say at least is because there are two objectives happening so far in this prompt. So for the format, I'm going to say at least one paragraph. And that's because there are two objectives. Take a second. Do you think you can spot the first objective? What is the first thing you have to do other than reading the two articles? What's the first thing you have to answer? If you're like me, you probably would have underlined how do the women in these two texts make history? And then the second thing they want you to answer is, based on both texts, what obstacles did these athletes encounter? So now when I paraphrase, I'm going to think, okay, what do I need to be able to do? Well, I need to state how both women make history and what obstacles they faced on their way to success. When you're writing, you want to start off your response very strong, and this is why we have topic sentences. The topic sentence needs to answer the prompt question and be clear. As fourth graders, we really struggle with starting off our response in a clear manner. If you're having trouble formulating the first sentence, just take a second and think of a broad answer that you can later dive deeper into with examples. You don't want to just jump in with your first sentence and give a whole bunch of examples. You want to set the stage. You want to prepare your readers for what they're about to get into. So that should be your first step. Then you want to go back and use some of the language from the prompt question to help guide your response. So here's an example that Jesus did for his homework, and I want you to take a look at how he does this. The prompt question asks, how does the arrival of the English change the narrator's life? Use details from the text in your response. Jesus says, the arrival of the English changed the narrator's life by making her have trust issues. Already, he answers the question, and it is very clear. If you look at step 2, right, if you're having trouble formulating, it says think of a broad answer. Notice that he didn't just jump in and he said, oh, it changed her life because this happened and then that happened and then the other thing happened. No, he didn't do that. He started off by saying she has trust issues. A broad answer that he can later expand on with evidence. And that's where his transitions come in. For example, this happened, that shows she has trust issues, right? Last but not least, use some of the information or some of the language from the prompt question to help guide your response. There are a lot of words that he has in common with the prompt. For example, he uses the word English, change, and narrator in his response. So we have the words, oh, and look, arrival too. So it says, how does the arrival of the English change the narrator's life? And he says the arrival of the English changed the narrator's life by. He's using that same language to start off his writing. That is what I want you guys to do. Let's try one together. The prompt is something that you've seen before because we talked about this for homework and we did it if you had me for intervention, Penn State. We did it during intervention class. The prompt says, how was Robert's experience in America different from Sarah's experience? Use details from the text to support your answer. There are 3 steps to starting our topic sentence. It needs to be clear and it needs to answer the question. If you're having trouble formulating the first sentence, think about a broad answer that you can later dive deeper into. Then go back and then use some of the language from the prompt question. So I'm going to start here. If you have your notebook right now, you can be trying to write or formulate your topic sentence alongside me as I write this one. So I'm going to start by using some of the language from the prompt. Robert's experience in America is different from Sarah's experience. Again, this was step 3, using some language from the prompt. Now I'm going to go to step 2, think of a broad answer. I'm going to say in many ways. Now, I kept it really broad like this so that I can provide as many examples as I want to later on. And this is where I would do so, right? I'll have my transition word, for example, and then I will dive in and find information from the text. Because I set it up like this, I could add 4, 5, 1,000 examples, right? And never feel like I need to change my topic sentence. So in many ways here, this is the broad answer that you want to have in your topic sentence. And then here's some of the repeated language that we saw in the original prompt. Transition words are the glue that holds your writing together. They're used to make the writing flow better. They're also a great way to introduce your evidence. Here's an example from Jesus with one of his writings. What connection does the author draw between Wilma's childhood illness and her later drive in sports? Jesus' response is, the connection between Wilma's childhood. For example, Wilma wasn't prepared to become an athlete, but she had a competitive spirit. Also, Wilma was as a child was weak. In addition to this, she traveled 50 miles because she was brave and determined. Finally, she spent 6 years with braces because her leg was crippled. How many transition words can you spot in his response? I give you a hint, there are 4. Right now, grab your notebook and start writing them down. Remember, we reviewed transition words in class. There's also going to be 2 links about transition words on my Clever page that you can take a look at. Giving you 10 more seconds to spot the 4 transition words. All right, if you're like me, these are the 4 words you should have highlighted as transitions. For example, should be one of them. Also should be your second one. In addition to one of my favorite transition words. And finally, all 4 of these transition words make a huge difference in his writing because it forces it to flow better. Please use them in your writing before you introduce the evidence, which is the next thing I am going to talk about. Evidence is proof. You can't prove that your answer to the prompt question is right unless you go back into the text and pull some lines or words out to analyze. And when I say analyze, I mean to show that you are right. Evidence can be paraphrased or it can come directly from the text. Here's an example from Jamira. The question was, why is it important to the story that the sky moves away from the people? And Jamira's answer is really great. She says the sky was once close to the earth so that people could cut parts of it to eat. The sky gladly gave, and the people gladly took. They took and took until soon they were slicing off colossal chunks and tossing them when they need not to. The sky said, I have offered you the greatest gift, and you thank me by wasting it? You throw me away into ditches and streams? If I am such little value, I will leave forever. End quotation. It was important that the sky moved away from the people to teach them not to be greedy and waste the greatest gift. Only take what you need so they couldn't take and waste. I know that Jamira uses evidence from the text that was directly from the text, meaning she went fishing because she used those quotation marks. Those little looks like commas up in the sky, that's what she's using. Of course, you don't always have to quote directly from the text, even though it shows me that you know what the text says literally. You can also paraphrase, and for more information about paraphrasing, take a look at the lesson that I posted on the week of April 27th. For your writing assignment on Wednesday, I need 2 pieces of evidence from each article that you had to read on Monday and Tuesday. For example, I need 2 pieces of evidence that shows how Wilma Rudolph, and the fastest woman in the world, how she made history in the Olympics, and how she overcame obstacles. Same goes for Alice Coachman and Alice Coachman Jumps for the Sky. So overall, you should have 4 pieces of evidence, whether it's paraphrased or quoted directly from the text. Analysis is when you show me why that piece of evidence you chose is important. If you get stuck on writing analysis, it's most likely because the word analysis seems really big and daunting. But in order to ease your fears, I want you to use the phrase, "This is important because," or "This example shows," to help you jump into proving your point. Let's take a look at Jamira's response. There is a sentence where she gives us analysis. It's always going to be placed usually right after a quote. Sometimes writers like to place it before the quote, but Jamira chose to place it afterwards. See if you can spot the sentence. The analysis is where she says, "It was important that," and then she goes into finishing her statement. "The sky moved away from the people to teach them not to be greedy and waste the greatest gift," right? This is where she takes the quote and she tells me how this quote is important or why it's important to answering her question. Last, but certainly not least, is the conclusion. The conclusion should wrap up everything you just wrote about. And it should begin with a strong transitional word or phrase. It may answer the prompt question again, so don't be alarmed if you're feeling like, yo, this is so similar to my topic sentence. But what it does overall is just signal to your reader that you're done. Here's an example Ms. Pickens wrote when she did the homework for one of your articles last week. The question is, what was the main idea of the Olympic article, and to use evidence from the text to explain my thinking. I started off with my topic sentence. The main idea of this article is the history of the Olympic Games and how it started. I gave examples by starting with transition words like "for example," "another example," "this section." And then I even went so far as to add quotation marks to show where I was in the text and how that related to my answer on this main idea. But in order for me to wrap it all up and to let my reader know, hey, I'm done, I had to start or finish, more likely, with a strong concluding sentence. And that is what is highlighted in yellow. It says, overall, that's the transition word that I'm starting with. This article teaches the reader about the history of the Olympic Games in Greece. Again, I'm starting to use some of the same language that was in my topic sentence. I'm answering the prompt question, and I'm signaling to the reader that I'm done. I want you to try this when you do your writing sample for Wednesday. All right, so I hope that video was really helpful for you, 4th grade. Again, I just want to quickly review what you will need to have for your writing response in order to score a 4. This goes for the writing response that's due on Wednesday or for any type of writing response that you have for homework. These are the things that I'm really expecting you to be able to do. So first is just to attack the prompt. What is the prompt asking you to do? Once you figure that out, move on to step 2. Have a topic sentence that answers the question. And when I say answer, I mean like thoroughly answer. So if it says to compare and contrast 2 characters in the story, I don't want you to just say they are the same or they are different. I want you to really dig in and be like, this character from this story is very similar to that character from that story. And then from there, go into your examples. I want you to use your transition words. Again, I'm going to be posting a link on Clever that you can use anytime you need for transition words. And when you do use that transition word, go into the text, go fishing, dive deep into the text, for lines that you can pull out to support your answer. 2 pieces of evidence from Olage Coachman jumps, and 2 pieces of evidence from the fastest woman in the world. So that's 2 pieces of evidence from this text and 2 pieces of evidence from that text, not 2 pieces overall. Overall, you should have 4 pieces of evidence. Then sprinkle in that analysis. Tell me, how does that line or that piece of evidence support your answer? That's the analysis. And last but not least, wrap it up with a concluding sentence. I really hope that this video will help you when you go into your assignment for Wednesday. And if you have any questions, you know you can contact me during my office hours, Tuesday and Thursday from 2 to 3. And I look forward to seeing what you guys submit. I know you are awesome. You're rocking it out. Can't wait for my next round of shout outs. Love you, and I'll talk to you soon.